How's it going, guys? Cracked Rag here, and today I have one final story for you all in regards to me getting fired from a business. Now, when I released my last How I Got Fired video, which was about Burger King, I thought that would be the last one until I remembered I actually had one more job I could cover for this series. That's right, I've had so many fucking jobs in the last 4 years, I don't even remember some of them. This job in particular, I got fired from after less than 2 days of working there. Anyway, so this story takes place right after the Taco Bell firing story. Essentially, the night I got fired from Taco Bell, my family was really pissed off at me because I hadn't contributed my half of the rent like I promised I would, and now there was no way I'd have any money for a good few weeks. That was until the next day when I was introduced by a friend to Craigslist's hiring section. See, Craigslist has like a now hiring section that showcases local posts from small businesses that are desperately seeking employment. Now, at the time, these posts should have been a huge red flag to me, considering just how desperate they were. They were practically begging you to let them hire you, which is just really sketchy and bizarre looking back. I would just really recommend avoiding the Craigslist jobs section. Nothing good comes from there, especially if you don't want to get raped, but that's a story for another time. Anyway, because of the immense pressure from my family to get another job ASAP, I looked past the sketchiness of these posts and found a job listing for a call center just out of town that was offering $17 an hour, and was actually offering up to like $25 an hour depending on how well you perform, which in my mind was fucking amazing compared to the 3 Sacagawea coins a month I got from Taco Bell. So I called them up, they answered, we talked for a few minutes, and before I knew it, I had an interview. Lined up tomorrow night, in fact. So, fast forward to the next day, I woke up at 6 a.m. to get ready for the interview, and a few minutes later I was outside waiting for the bus. The bus ride there was the first major red flag to me that this job was gonna suck balls. Why, you ask? Because it took like 3 fucking hours to get there. Even taking Uber there would have taken at least an hour and a half. I foolishly hadn't checked on Google Maps how far away this place was, and had just blindly set out on this 3-hour adventure. Though luckily I had arrived just in time, and when I eventually got there, I saw that there was also a few other people in suits waiting outside looking to interview. We eventually were greeted by this really overly energetic, overly excited man who introduced himself as the boss. At this point I was thinking, okay, I'm definitely gonna get raped in a minute, I just know it. But luckily, this man had good intentions, and he let us all into the interview room, which led to one of the most awkward interviews of my entire life. Why was it awkward? Because this fucking coked up Willy Wonka looking ass bitch boss was trying to pitch this job to us like it was gonna change our lives. This was the point I realized that I'm either getting raped in a minute or this job was going to be a gigantic scam. Luckily, I discovered that neither of those things were the case. But the reason this job was so desperate for employees and paid so well is because it was a fucking horrible job. So fast forward to my first day working there and I already fucking hate it with a passion. For one, I took an Uber to work on my first day to alleviate stress, but it didn't alleviate shit because it was still an hour and a half drive there, and my Uber driver was a fucking idiot who made me late on my first day because his dumbass decided he needed to go to Taco Bell and sit at the drive-thru for 30 minutes before picking me up. Anyway, upon getting there, I'm revealed the true nature of this job almost immediately. So get this, my job was to sell really expensive scam advertising space at a local golf course. And by the way I had to do this was by looking up a yellow page directory of every business local to me, before then spam calling the shit out of them a billion times until they answer, to which I then had to try and manipulate the business owner into purchasing ad space through really aggressive language. Now this may not sound like the hardest job ever, but it fucking is. There's nothing more exhausting than cold calling a bunch of random assholes who are already in a bad mood and trying to sell them expensive shit, especially expensive shit at a golf course they've never fucking been to in their entire lives. And it's not like I could get away with just calling a few of these people in one day. There was a quota that required you call 250 people minimum a day, or else you'd get suspended pay. I was actually doing decently well the first day, or so I thought, when I made a gigantic sale of like $1,500 after calling up a local camera shop. The sale was so big, literally everyone in the office stood and clapped for me and congratulated me because it was so impressive. And the boss even approached me and told me I was a natural and that my work ethic was inspiring. Now, this sounds like a cringy fairy tale lie, right? Well, it won't when I finish the story. See, 30 minutes after I made that sale and felt all proud of myself, my boss announced that the person I called for the sale was actually trolling me and wasn't even the owner of the business I called. It was just some shitty asshole kid. Do you know how humiliating it is to get a stand standing ovation from like 50 people for something, only to find out 30 minutes later it was all a goddamn hoax. The rest of that day, I just felt sick to my stomach and I was exhausted. When I got home, I didn't even want to move. The next and final day of work at this corporation was even worse somehow. I realized quickly that 99% of the people I'd call on a daily basis would pretty much tell me to go kill myself, and the 1% of people who were stupid enough to accept our offer were clearly mentally handicapped, so it didn't feel good whether you won or lost at this corporation. Also, this place was full of these weird, creepy old women flirts in their 40s and 50s who worked there, who would shamelessly just like start rubbing my shoulders and shit when I was calling these businesses, which is really uncomfortable. I know that sounds like some people's fantasy, but it's just extremely bizarre in real life. Anyway, after day 2 of working here, I realized quickly that if I kept working here, I would die of AIDS. Not literal AIDS, mental AIDS, which is even worse. So I decided that night I was gonna quit. Also, I didn't like the management. They were just weird as hell. They'd do this weird thing where they'd all gather around a computer close to me and start watching Mr. Beast videos out loud and talking about how jealous they were of YouTubers like PewDiePie for all the money they frequently make. It was just weird, especially because these were grown men in their 50s with families and shit. But anyway, that night when I got home, I decided I wasn't even going to give this business a 2-week notice, or even a notice at all. They didn't deserve it. They just sucked. I just stopped showing up starting the next day. I didn't say shit to anyone, and I got my paycheck in the mail a week later, which was actually pretty impressive. I'd only put in like 15 hours of work and my paycheck was $500, not including the tips I made. But to be fair, the amount of work you have to put in to get that much money was not worth it. So yeah, that's the story of how I got fired as a telemarketer. The moral of the story is never work at a call center and never work fast food. These two types of jobs go very hand in hand with how they operate, and it's just completely soul-sucking. If you're looking for a fulfilling dead-end job that you only will be needing temporarily, I'd really just recommend being a waiter at a nice restaurant or something. Anyway, that's all for today. See ya.